They came like an invasion force dressed in pastels. 4 of them, clipboards in hand, khaki pants pressed with military precision that would make a drill sergeant proud. At the front was Karen Voss, the president of Harmony Oaks Estates HOA, her blonde hair sprayed into an immovable helmet that screamed, "I have never been wrong in my life." "Mr. Hale," she said in that sickly sweet voice that could curdle milk, "your little project back there is in direct violation of our community standards. That swamp you've got going on, it's an eyesore. We're taking care of it now that your parcel has been brought into the buffer zone." Ryan Hale stood on his porch, arms crossed, the kind of calm that comes from having seen real chaos in logistics runs through active war zones. 15 years dodging IEDs had taught him the difference between actual threats and bureaucratic noise. He had bought these 9 acres of pine-scented wilderness precisely because they were zoned rural agricultural, miles from any HOA pastel dictatorship. This land was his decompression chamber, his self-declared demilitarized zone. The only ongoing operation was resuscitating the spring-fed wetland down by the creek, a slow, muddy campaign against neglect that was far more satisfying than any supply chain he'd ever managed. "Buffer zone," Ryan replied, his voice low and even, the one he used in tedious briefings when someone was trying to sell him nonsense. "This land isn't part of Harmony Oaks. Never has been. County records are pretty clear on that." Karen's smile didn't reach her flinty eyes. "Annexation protocols, dear. We've updated the maps. For the greater good of property values, of course. Now, about that muck pit." The word muck pit hung in the air like a declaration of war. Her gaze slid past him to the wetland, lip curling in genuine disgust, as if the sight of natural water and native plants personally offended her soul. Unregulated algae soup like that drags down the entire aesthetic cohesion of the community. "We'll have a crew out here by Friday to fill it in and lay proper sod. You'll be billed, naturally." Ryan felt the old familiar click in his brain, the one that turned passive observer into tactician. He had been slandered before, labeled the difficult veteran in his last neighborhood after he pushed back against a corrupt supplier who tried to shortchange troops. Cleared in the end, but the whispers stuck. He wouldn't make the same mistake of reacting immediately. No, this time he would watch, observe, and when the moment came, he would strike with surgical precision. "Trespassing," he said, the word cold as a tourniquet. "That's the only regulation you need to worry about right now. You have 60 seconds to conduct a tactical withdrawal. After that, the rules of engagement change." The quartet exchanged synchronized head tilts, like confused birds deciding if he was edible. Karen planted her designer boots firmer. "Mr. Hale, threats won't." 60 seconds ticked by in heavy silence. Ryan thumbed the key fob in his pocket. From the barn roof, 2 commercial-grade quadcopters whined to life, lifting like oversized angry wasps. Simultaneously, a repurposed truck air horn connected to a CO2 tank blasted a deafening sustained note that rattled teeth. Karen shrieked, spinning like a top. One board member stumbled backward into the ditch he hadn't noticed. Clipboards flew. They didn't wait for a second blast. They scrambled toward the road, Karen surprisingly agile in her panicked retreat, arms flailing like a malfunctioning windmill. One dropped his clipboard. Ryan made a mental note to retrieve it later. Intel was intel. That night, fueled by cold coffee and simmering fury, Ryan dug into county records, GIS maps, and property deeds on his laptop. It didn't take long. His 9 acres were stubbornly, unequivocally not part of Harmony Oaks Estates. Their so-called annexation map looked like it had been drawn by a drunk toddler in Microsoft Paint. Wobbly lines overlapping long-established parcels, referencing documents that either didn't exist or clearly pertained to properties miles away. He called the county planning office the next morning. "Harmony Oaks annexation records for parcel 472 beta," the clerk said after a long pause and keyboard clicks. "Doesn't ring a bell specifically. We show it zone rural AG. If they filed expansion paperwork, sometimes things get loosely cross-referenced." "Loosely," Ryan pressed. "The map includes owners who never signed anything. Looks fraudulent." The clerk sighed. "Fraudulent is a strong word, sir. We process a lot of documents. Unless there's an official challenge with substantial proof." The implication was clear. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Official channels were useless for now. 2 days later, the first fine arrived in cheerful font. $1,850 for immediate landscaping remediation, wetland noncompliance. No letterhead, no certification. Ryan filed it straight in the circular bin. But the harassment escalated quickly. Fresh tire tracks appeared near his tool shed that he hadn't made. Then, while checking the perimeter, he found it, a cheap wildlife camera zip-tied to a pine, lens aimed squarely at his pond. Someone had been creeping onto his land, documenting his violations. The final straw came when his well's water pressure tank started acting up. A quick inspection revealed tampering. The valve near the pump wasn't fully closed. Following faint soil disturbance under the fence line, he unearthed a poorly buried PVC pipe running straight toward Karen Voss's meticulously manicured English rose garden. She was literally stealing water from his private well, likely messing with the delicate balance he'd been building for the wetland. That flipped the switch. Years of field improvisation kicked in. It took one afternoon with PVC cutters, cement, and a backflow preventer. Ryan routed a secondary line from the well through an intermediate holding tank he normally used for livestock runoff collection. Nutrient-rich, slightly murky pond water full of fish waste and organic matter, before reconnecting toward her illegal pipe. Cause: meat effect. The effect manifested 2 evenings later with Karen hammering on his front gate, face purple, voice cracking like tearing tinfoil. You monster," she shrieked, trembling finger pointed. "My prize-winning angel face roses. They're covered in filth. What did you spray over the fence? This is chemical warfare. Domestic terrorism." Ryan walked calmly to the gate, stopping a safe distance away. "Evening, Karen. Trespassing again, I see. As for your roses." He let the pause stretch, watching her stew. "Maybe you should inspect the integrity of your own water source. Tapping into someone else's private well without permission can lead to unpredictable pressure fluctuations. And sometimes, things get sucked backwards. Stealing? It's an HOA utility easement," she sputtered, falling back on jargon like it was armor. "There is no easement, Karen. Check the county records. I know you didn't properly file. I didn't poison anything. I simply secured my well's output. If your unauthorized, shoddily connected pipe experienced backflow from, say, an adjacent agricultural runoff tank when my pump cycled." Ryan shrugged, the picture of innocence. "Plumbing can be tricky. Now, I suggest you leave. The next uninvited visit might trigger deterrents designed for larger, smellier pests." She stared, speechless for a rare moment, then spun and stormed off, muttering threats about lawsuits and sheriffs. Later that night, an anonymous email landed in Ryan's inbox. Subject: Harmony Oaks Intel. The message was brief. "She's furious about the water. Telling the board you attacked her. Be careful. The annexation docs are even flimsier than you think. She bullied the board into accepting them. Signed only neighbor watching. A potential ally inside the walls." Things just got interesting. The warning solidified Ryan's resolve. Karen wasn't just erratic. She was actively plotting, armed with fraudulent papers and a bullied board. Confirmation came 2 nights later through the thermal scope he used for wildlife observation. 2 figures near the creek bed, right at the edge of his wetland. One was unmistakably Mr. Evans from the initial visit, the other unfamiliar. They weren't just looking. They were using measuring tapes and driving small stakes into the ground dangerously close to his established property line. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was an attempt to physically alter boundaries. Passive defense was no longer enough. If Karen wanted to treat his land like contested territory, then contested territory she would get, just not in the way she imagined. Ryan spent the evening poring over county zoning ordinances. Rural agricultural zoning contained a beautifully vague golden clause: allowances for private use simulation and training grounds for tactical, educational, or security purposes. Likely meant for hunting clubs or paintball fields, but the language was broad enough. That was all he needed. The following morning, he filed a formal notice of intent to construct and operate a private tactical training zone at the county clerk's office. As Exhibit A, he attached a copy of Harmony Oaks' laughably bad annexation map from the dropped clipboard. The clerk gave him a look that screamed, "I don't get paid enough for this," and stamped the paperwork with weary resignation. Phase 1 of the counteroffensive was visible deterrence. The flimsy farm fencing was replaced with 6-foot steel posts and heavy-gauge wire mesh angled at the top. Along the road-facing side, he added decorative but decidedly unfriendly anti-vehicle spikes disguised as landscape features. Motion-activated LED floodlights capable of turning night into day were mounted strategically. Weatherproof two-way speakers went up at the gate and key perimeter points. Then came the upgraded drones, commercial-grade with thermal imaging, night vision, and powerful spotlights. He programmed a rotating playlist for their external speakers, pre-recorded warnings in multiple languages, bursts of jungle combat sound effects, snippets of overly dramatic HOA rule recitals in a mocking tone, and for sheer chaotic effect, 30 seconds of incoherent screaming. Within a week, his peaceful sanctuary looked more like a low-budget post-apocalyptic thriller set. The UPS driver started leaving packages at the roadside mailbox. His mailman texted before driving up the gravel path. Progress. The first test of the upgraded defenses came on a Wednesday. Ryan was calibrating a motion sensor near the gate when he heard the familiar banshee shriek echoing through the trees. This is intimidation. Harassment. You're turning this neighborhood into a war zone. There she was, Karen, phone held high, filming his fence line from just outside the new perimeter. This isn't Baghdad. You are currently filming a restricted private training area, Ryan announced through the nearest speaker, voice calm and amplified. Cease trespassing immediately or you will be subject to non-lethal deterrence, including high-intensity light and audio harassment. As if on cue, one drone lifted silently from the barn, its spotlight locking onto her. Karen shrieked again, flinging a stick futilely at the speaker. The drone descended slightly, emitting a deafening burst of static. She scrambled backward, tripped over her oversized handbag, and landed squarely in a patch of poison ivy Ryan had deliberately left untouched near the fence line. He made a mental note to fertilize it later. 2 days later, a thick, certified letter arrived, reeking of legal intimidation. It was from Arthur Thorne, ESQ, representing Harmony Oaks Estates HOA. It accused Ryan of militant posturing, hostile environmental modifications, and creating a public nuisance threatening community safety. It demanded he cease all paramilitary activities and dismantle his fortifications immediately, threatening injunctions, lawsuits, and unspecified damages. Thanks to the anonymous neighbor's earlier heads-up, Ryan knew half of it was pure bluster. He spent an evening drafting his response, citing specific county zoning codes, his filed notice of intent, and state laws regarding private property rights. He politely detailed their repeated trespassing, the water theft, the surveillance, and attached a printout of the thermal image showing Evans staking his land. As a final touch, he included a high-resolution still frame from his drone footage, Karen mid-shriek, scrambling away from the speaker, purse flying. He sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. The response seemed to be a temporary pause in direct confrontation, but the covert aggression continued. During a perimeter check, Ryan found fresh pry marks on the weatherproof casing of his main drone control unit. Nearby, insulation had been stripped from the well pump's power cable with deep score marks on the copper wire beneath. Someone had tried to cut it, but hadn't gotten all the way through. Cold fury washed over him. This was escalating beyond harassment toward genuine criminal damage. He reinforced the casings and added secondary, less obvious alert sensors. Karen was getting desperate. Predictably, the low-level harassment resumed. Evans and another loyalist were caught on camera fiddling with the utility junction box near the road. Their excuse? Routine infrastructure compliance check authorized by the HOA board. Ryan didn't even bother arguing. He just called the sheriff. The responding deputy was starting to look familiar. He patiently explained once again that they had no jurisdiction or permits outside their designated area and issued another stern warning for Karen via radio. Documentation mattered. If they wanted a training zone, Ryan would give them one. He called his old friend David, who ran a small security consulting and wilderness survival company. Got that training permit filed? David asked. Ryan offered the land free of charge for a weekend course. All he asked was that they make their presence visible. David readily agreed. The following week, large, professionally made signs went up every 100 feet along the fence line. Warning: active tactical training zone. Live simulations in progress. Entry at own risk. 24/7 surveillance. Ryan made sure the largest one faced Karen's kitchen window. Then came the tree-mounted speakers, triggered randomly by motion sensors near the perimeter, playing snippets of drill sergeant commands, the distant chop of helicopter rotors, and occasionally the unsettling clicking sound from the Predator movies. At night, low-wattage strobe lights flickered intermittently deep within the woods. The rumor mill in the surrounding area went into overdrive. The final act of this phase came courtesy of another tip from the anonymous neighbor. Karen was holding an emergency HOA board meeting to demand action against his illegal militia base. Perfect timing. As the meeting commenced in their sterile community center, Ryan launched a drone equipped with a small, powerful speaker. Guiding it remotely via thermal camera through an open window, he had it hovered dramatically over the conference table. The room fell silent. "Good evening, Harmony Oaks board," his amplified voice echoed from the drone. "Apologies for the intrusion, but since your jurisdiction seems to have annexed my property without my consent, I felt a brief clarification was in order. My activities are fully permitted under County Ordinance 7.4b regarding private training zones. Your annexation documents," he paused, letting it sink in, "that are currently under review for potential fraud. Continued harassment, trespassing, or slander will result in immediate legal escalation. Oh, and Karen, how's that plumbing holding up?" The drone spun slowly, its camera capturing the stunned faces before Karen let out a roar and lunged at it with a flimsy folding chair. The drone easily evaded her wild swing, zipped back out the window, and climbed into the night sky. The game had just gone public. The drone footage from the HOA meeting was gold. Someone inside that room, likely fed up with Karen's antics, leaked it to a local community Facebook group within hours, titled simply, "Harmony Grove Meeting Gets Interesting." It exploded. Karen lunging at the hovering drone with a chair became an instant local meme. The comments were brutal, but Ryan knew humiliating her wouldn't stop her. It would only make her more desperate. The anonymous neighbor confirmed as much in a hurried email. "She's completely unhinged, talking about escalating countermeasures." Watch yourself. Ryan didn't have to wait long. His upgraded perimeter system pinged him at 2:17 a.m. 3 nights later. Infrared camera feed number 4 showed a figure dressed in dark clothing, hood pulled low, struggling with something against the steel mesh. Facial recognition flagged it instantly. Karen. In her hands, unmistakable even in the shadows, was a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters. She was trying to cut her way through the fence, presumably to sabotage the well pump or the drone controls housed nearby. The system had already forwarded the live feed and location data to the sheriff's dispatch. Within minutes, the silent red and blue glow of a patrol car painted the tree line. 2 deputies emerged, moving quietly but purposefully. Karen was so focused she didn't notice them until the sudden beam of a mag light pinned her against the fence like a startled possum. "Ma'am, drop the cutters and step away from the fence." Karen shrieked, dropping the heavy tool with a clang. "My dog," she gasped, clutching her chest theatrically. "I was looking for my dog Buttons. He ran off." I got turned around in the dark. It was a pathetic lie, especially considering her house was in the opposite direction and Buttons, her yappy Pomeranian, was unlikely to be wandering Ryan's woods at 2 a.m. The lead deputy sighed, heavy with accumulated frustration. "Karen, we have you on high-resolution infrared video attempting to cut this fence with bolt cutters. We got the alert about 10 minutes ago." He picked up the cutters. "We'll be issuing you citations for trespassing, destruction of property, and attempted vandalism. You need to go home now and stay there." Humiliated and furious, sputtering incoherent threats, Karen was escorted off the property. This time there were official charges. This time it felt like a turning point. But Karen, true to form, doubled down. The very next day, a frantic emergency community alert email went out from the Harmony Oaks HOA account, filled with hyperbolic warnings about the unlicensed paramilitary training compound on their border, urging residents to flood every authority with complaints about Ryan's threat to public safety. It was time to pull the pin. while David's weekend training crew ran visible, fully permitted drills on the land, complete with professional gear and inert aids. Ryan compiled everything into a single damning digital dossier. The fraudulent annexation maps the neighbor had helped confirm were never properly voted on. The fake violation notices. Thermal images and videos of Evans and others trespassing and staking his land. Thorne's threatening letters contrasted with Ryan's legally grounded responses. The high-resolution video of Karen caught red-handed cutting the fence. The neighbor's anonymized testimony about Karen bullying the board. Evidence of the water theft. And of course the viral drone footage from the HOA meeting. He sent the entire encrypted package to Sarah Jenkins, an investigative reporter he knew from his contracting days. She responded within an hour. "This is incredible. Let me verify a few things." It took her less than 48 hours. Her story broke the following Wednesday under the headline, HOA President's Annexation Scheme Exposed, Forged Documents, Backyard Warfare, and Alleged Fraud Rattle Affluent Suburb. The article laid everything bare: the fake documents, Karen's vendetta, the water theft, the surveillance, the fence incident, the questionable use of HOA funds. It included quotes from unnamed residents and the county clerk confirming no valid annexation record existed. The story exploded. Radio stations picked it up. It dominated local social media. Ryan's inbox filled with messages of support and other Harmony Grove residents sharing their own horror stories of Karen's reign, petty fines, denied permits, blatant favoritism. Arthur Thorne blustered about suing the newspaper for defamation. The paper responded by publishing his legal threat alongside a follow-up piece. Someone online unearthed the phrase "weaponized landscaping" from one of Karen's earlier notices, and the memes wrote themselves. Thorne quietly withdrew his threat. Inside Harmony Oaks, the carefully constructed facade crumbled. Emergency meetings turned into shouting matches. Board members resigned on the spot, publicly disavowing Karen's actions. Her attempt to impose a special assessment fee to cover potential legal damages was laughed out of the room. Residents started organizing petitions to formally dissolve the HOA entirely, citing gross mismanagement and fraud. The Treasury, upon inspection, was found almost empty with questionable payments made out over the past year. And then came the perfect final irony. As if summoned by the gods of poetic justice, Karen's own backyard irrigation system, strained by the illegal connection and subsequent disconnection from Ryan's well, spectacularly failed. A neighbor, drawn by the commotion, filmed the whole thing. The corroded backflow valve she'd installed improperly finally gave way, sending a geyser of stagnant, murky brown water, a vile cocktail from her own over-fertilized flower beds and months of sitting in compromised pipes, erupting 20 feet into the air, raining down directly onto her award-winning angel face roses. The video, inevitably posted online, showed Karen slipping in the mud, shrieking, trying desperately to shield her precious blooms with a flapping tarp, only to be repeatedly blasted by the foul geyser. It was pure, unadulterated, self-inflicted karma. The war wasn't just won. It was over. Karen's spectacular sewage-fueled irrigation meltdown became the unofficial punctuation mark on the demise of the Harmony Oaks Estates HOA. While the viral video of her mud-splattered tantrum provided cathartic amusement for many, the real work of untangling the mess she'd created was just beginning. Official investigations were launched. Auditors confirmed rampant financial mismanagement and the complete lack of legal standing for the attempted annexation. The HOA's assets were frozen. The neighborhood petition to dissolve sailed through. Whispering Pines Estates HOA, wait, Harmony Oaks, ceased to exist, not with a bang, but with the whimpering signature on a dissolution order. Karen herself faced civil charges relating to fraud and misuse of funds. Her high-priced lawyer withdrew representation. Ryan's own countersuit for trespassing, damages, and defamation proceeded essentially unopposed. She settled quickly. The criminal charges for the fence-cutting incident resulted in fines and probation, a permanent mark on her record. With the legal dust settling and the HOA officially defunct, Ryan threw a barbecue for the whole neighborhood, including the liberated residents of the former Harmony Oaks. He called it the first annual HOA Survivor Fest. They set up grills near the barn, cranked up classic rock, and shared Karen horror stories. The highlight came just before sunset. Ryan climbed a stepladder by the main gate and ceremoniously unscrewed the large, active tactical training zone sign. A cheer went up as it came down. In its place, he mounted a beautifully carved wooden sign that read simply, "Private property, established before HOAs. HOA free zone forever." More cheers, applause, and the popping of champagne corks. In the months that followed, genuine peace settled back over the 9 acres. The heavy-duty fence remained, a prudent precaution, but the floodlights stayed dark, the speakers silent, the drones docked. Ryan started spending long hours down by the wetland again. The water level stabilized. Native plants thrived. Frogs returned, then would ducks. The quiet wasn't just the absence of HOA harassment. It was the presence of life knitting itself back together. About 6 months later, Ryan got a forwarded screenshot from an anonymous address he suspected was his neighbor ally. It was from a neighborhood Facebook group 3 states away in some new, aggressively upscale development. The post read, "Help. Does anyone know the rules about trampoline noise? There's a new resident, Karen V., who joined the HOA board immediately and is trying to fine us because she says our kids' laughter is disrupting community serenity. She's demanding soil density reports for the trampoline legs. Is this even legal?" Ryan stared at the screenshot, the familiar name, the same playbook, different battlefield. A slow smile spread across his face. He closed the message, took a sip of his coffee, and looked out over his quiet, peaceful land, the wetland shimmering in the morning light. Some battles you fight, some you win, and some, thankfully, move on to inflict their special brand of absurdity elsewhere. His war was over. His peace was secure. And his property line was finally just a property line. So tell me, was the homeowner the real villain for defending his land with clever, legal tactics? Or was the HOA Karen the true threat for faking authority, stealing resources, and terrorizing her own community? True or false? Who was really wrong here? Drop your verdict in the comments.